When Evelyn Whitmore first saw her brother's body in the morgue, she didn't cry. She simply froze, staring at his face, pale, lifeless, as if molded from wax. His lips were slightly parted, as though he'd been about to say something important but never got the chance. The doctor called it a heart attack. Too much stress, he said with sympathy Evelyn didn't feel. Because she knew, her brother hadn't died from stress. He died from betrayal. And she knew the betrayer's name from the very first moment. It was Damien, she said when she returned home, standing before the mirror in her Beverly Hills mansion bedroom. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but steel rang beneath it. Damien Carver. Her cousin. The man who'd spent 30 years living in the Whitmore family's shadow, feeding off their charity, their connections, their money, and all that time plotting how to take it all for himself. Evelyn slowly removed her gloves. Her hands trembled, not from grief, but from rage. She remembered her last conversation with her brother, just a week before he died. He'd been tense, talking about changing his will, saying it was time to end this parasitic dependence. He'd meant Damien. And now he was dead. The police found nothing suspicious. The autopsy confirmed natural causes. But Evelyn knew better. She knew how Damien manipulated, how he could plant fear, doubt, despair in someone's mind until they broke. Especially someone already weakened by illness, like her brother had been since his stroke a year earlier. She walked to the safe hidden behind a Monet painting. Opened it. Inside lay documents, copies of bank transfers, phone records, email printouts. For the past 2 months, she'd been gathering everything she could. Damien was careful, but not careful enough to hide his embezzlement from the family trust. He'd started siphoning money even before her brother's death. First small sums. Then millions. But the money was only part of his plan. The real prize was control of Whitmore Holdings. Without it, the family lost everything: influence, reputation, future. And Damien knew it. Evelyn closed the safe and turned toward the window. Outside, the sunset bathed the palm trees in gold. The city below looked peaceful, serene. But she knew, beneath that smooth surface, a war was raging. And it had only just begun. The next morning, Evelyn went to the cemetery. The funeral had been 3 days ago, and most people had already left. Only one person still stood by the grave: Damien. He held a white rose in his hand. He looked mournful, almost saintly. "Come to say goodbye?" he asked without turning around. "I came to tell you something," Evelyn replied, stopping 2 steps away. He turned slowly. His face was smooth, free of any trace of worry. His eyes cold as glass. "Well, you won't get a single cent, Damien. No shares, no houses, not even that damn tie you're wearing. Nothing." He smiled. Not maliciously. Condescendingly. "Evelyn, darling, don't you understand yet? The will is already in effect. The board voted. You no longer have voting rights in Whitmore Holdings. Which means," he paused, savoring the moment, "you can't do a thing." She didn't answer. Just stared at him. And in that look, he finally saw not anger, but resolve. Ruthless, merciless resolve. "We'll see," she said, and walked away. That same evening, Evelyn met someone she hadn't seen in 10 years. His name was Marcus Reed, her father's former attorney, now a private consultant specializing in corporate warfare. He waited for her in the dim light of a closed downtown restaurant. "Are you serious about this?" he asked when she sat down. "I want him to lose everything. Not just money. Not just status. I want him to feel like nobody. The way my brother felt in his final days." Marcus nodded. He knew the rules of this game. And he knew how to play dirty. "I have a plan," he said. "But it'll take time. And blood." "Blood is all we have left," Evelyn replied. The plan began small, with a leak. 3 days after meeting Marcus, rumors started circulating in business circles. Damien Carver was allegedly involved in investment fraud through offshore startups. No hard evidence, just whispers, quotes from anonymous sources, disgruntled investor comments. But it was enough to trigger an emergency board meeting at Whitmore Holdings. He arrived confident, in an expensive suit, flawless hair, and a winner's smile. But within an hour, his face had turned gray. "These accusations are absurd," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "You have nothing. We have bank statements, the board chairman said calmly. And testimony from the accountant you fired last month. Damien froze. He hadn't expected anyone to find that man. The accountant had vanished after his dismissal on Damien's orders. But apparently not entirely. In truth, the accountant was living in San Diego under a false name. Marcus had tracked him down. For a generous reward and a guarantee of safety, the man agreed to cooperate. He provided not only documents but audio recordings, conversations where Damien explicitly instructed him to falsify reports. The board didn't wait for a trial. They suspended Damien as CEO pending investigation. Company shares dropped 12%. Investors began pulling out. Evelyn watched it all from the shadows. She didn't appear in public. Gave no interviews. Just waited. But Damien didn't surrender. A week later, he sued the board to reinstate him as CEO. Simultaneously, he launched a smear campaign against Evelyn in the press. Magazines painted her as a vindictive heiress, emotionally unstable, claiming she'd orchestrated the leak to seize control of the company. Evelyn didn't respond until one morning she found a letter on her desk. No envelope. No signature. Just a photograph inside. It showed her niece, her late brother's 16-year-old daughter, Lily, taken the day before outside her school. On the back, in bold letters, "She's next." Evelyn went cold. That was crossing a line. She called Marcus immediately. "He's moved to threats," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "This isn't just about money anymore." "Then it's time for the final phase," Marcus replied. "Are you ready?" "I was born for this." The final phase began with the IRS. Marcus knew Damien's weak spot, his beloved yacht, Serafina. Officially owned by the company, but used exclusively by him, a clear violation. But more importantly, personal documents were stored on board. Very personal ones. Using contacts at the Treasury Department, Marcus arranged a raid, not by police, but by tax authorities. Quieter, but no less devastating. On board, they found not only undeclared Swiss accounts, but also correspondence with powerful politicians, in which Damien offered financial support in exchange for lobbying favors. This wasn't just fraud. It was bribery. The news exploded. The FBI opened an investigation. Damien was arrested the next day. But Evelyn knew it wasn't enough. He'd wriggle free. He had lawyers, connections, millions for bail. She needed to strike straight at the heart. So she decided to wield the most dangerous weapon of all, truth. The truth came in one name, Isabella Carver, Damien's ex-wife. The woman he'd abandoned 2 years earlier, leaving her with nothing. She lived in a modest Santa Monica home, teaching piano. And she hated him with every fiber of her being. Evelyn found her through mutual acquaintances. They met at an oceanfront cafe. Isabella was fragile, but fire burned in her eyes. "He stole everything from me," she said. "Even my daughter's name. He cut me off from seeing her." "I can get your daughter back," Evelyn said. "But only if you help me destroy him completely." Isabella agreed. A week later, a major news network aired an exclusive interview. Isabella revealed everything: how Damien manipulated the Whitmore family, how he pushed her ex-husband toward depression, how he threatened her life when she tried to leave. She showed messages, audio clips, even video of him screaming at her, calling her worthless. Public opinion flipped. Damien was no longer seen as a victim, he was labeled a predator. But the real blow came not from the press, but from his own son. 20-year-old Jason Carver, a Yale student, had always admired his father. But after his mother's interview, he was horrified. He found files on his father's old laptop, drafts of letters Damien had written to Evelyn's brother in the final months of his life. In them, Damien didn't just criticize, he mocked. Called him a weakling, a failure, wrote, "The world will be better off without someone like you." Jason handed those letters to the prosecutor. Now they had motive, not just financial, but personal. The DA announced they were considering charges of criminal coercion, leading to fatal distress. Damien sat in his cell, watching the news on a grainy TV. His face twisted. He understood. The game was over. But Evelyn wasn't finished. She visited him in prison. He sat behind glass, in an orange jumpsuit. He looked old. Broken. "You won," he said, without bitterness. "Take it all." I already have, she replied. The company, the estate, even your yacht was auctioned off. But that's not enough. He looked up. What else do you want? A confession. Public. That you killed my brother. That you knew he wouldn't survive your threats. That you wanted him dead. He was silent for a long time. If I do, will you secure my son's future? Jason will receive a Whitmore Foundation scholarship and a job after graduation. But only if you tell the truth. Damien nodded. The next day, at a press conference, he confessed, fully, without excuses. Evelyn stood in the front row. When he finished, she rose and walked out. Without a word. A year passed. Whitmore Holdings restored its reputation. Shares rose 35%. Evelyn became chair of the board. But she felt no triumph, only exhaustion. She often visited the cemetery. Placed a white rose, the same kind Damien once held, at her brother's grave. One day, she met Jason there. Thank you, he said. For not destroying me too. You're not guilty of your father's sins, she replied. He nodded and left. Evelyn remained alone. Wind rustled the leaves. She wondered if revenge had been worth all she'd lost. Her brother wouldn't come back. And she'd become someone else. Colder. Harder. But sometimes, in a world ruled by money and power, kindness is a death sentence. She turned and walked toward her car. Her driver waited behind the wheel. On the seat lay a folder, new case. Rivals were trying to seize one of the company's key assets. More intrigue. More betrayal. Evelyn smiled. She knew what to do. Because revenge isn't a one-time act. It's a way of life. And she was the best at it.